Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Let's make dua inshallah with that. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam tabarakta dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma rabbana yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair. Wa bika nasta'een ya fattah. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma rabbana zidna ilman nafi'a wa 'amalan mutaqabbala. ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء فسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Our last class we were discussing basically the relationship that one has with their in-laws, and we concluded that class bearing in mind the important things that a wife and a husband who shares a relationship with their in-laws, how it should be, and how important it is that they recognize the rights of each other. Tonight, inshallah, we want to look at the importance of spending time with one's spouse. Spending time with one's spouse. This is a very important aspect of the relationship of marriage and companionship in marriage. Spending time. Usually we always hear the question, whenever they have some little grouses or little disturbances in their marriage, we usually hear people say, give them some time, things will work out. Give them some time, things will work out. But sometimes some things will take place and cool down a little bit. But really and truly, who really owns the time to give the time? It's not a principle of giving time, because it's not our time anyway. It's a matter of putting time to a relationship that is very important. How do we adjust that time in a relationship? Where do we find time to really work that relationship? And that tells us that time is a very important thing in a relationship. Sometimes we really do not understand how valuable time is to a human being. And in a relationship, a marital relationship, husband and wife, they also have to value time. They have to value time. Because individually, as human beings, we have an objective with the life that Allah has given us. And that is also occupying our time. And likewise, when we are sharing a relationship with someone, we are also sharing that time which Allah has blessed us with to live in that time with that individual. So we have to understand and be conscious how valuable this time is with that relationship, because that time will have to be shared between that individual along with their parents, sometimes with children, sometimes with relatives, sometimes with so many other people. But more so, how do we share this time with our spouse? And how much time and in what condition and in what way? And therefore, understanding this is very important, because many people complain in their relationship that their husband do not have time for them. They may mean other things as well, that he doesn't pay attention as well, but they use the word time instead of attention. But really and truly, what they're really getting at is that to have attention, you must also have what? Time. And in understanding this, we must look at it really and truly how important is time in that complaint. Whether or not that person really needs to share that time or not. And therefore, we have to look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us in relationship to time. Because with time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and tells us in the Quran in Surah Al-Asr, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. By time, man is at a loss. We really don't own time, and we only allotted a particular time. And every day that goes by, every moment that ticks away, it means that we are losing time in our lifespan. It's not going to get any more except by the will of Allah. Allahu alam, Allah knows best. But whatever Allah has blessed an individual with is only that which he has with him. It's like melting ice. If you don't sell that ice off soon, all the profits and all the benefit goes. Just so is that time. It is like melting ice. If you don't make use of it, that part of the profit of time is also lost. The value of it, what you could have achieved in that time, is also lost and it will never return. No matter how much you could have tried to do to achieve anything back in that time has already gone. So there is no way you can get it back. And so Allah says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And it's only important to those who have iman and do righteous deeds. This is the consciousness of time. What to do with that time? Righteous actions. So one of the consciousness as a believer is that one must recognize what is the objective of time for a believer. How important is time for a believer? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. That he utilizes that time with iman to do righteous deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. That he establishes upon what? Truth. He uses time to establish himself upon truth and with patience. He has this ability to understand this as an individual, a husband and a wife. They must know that this is the founding principle of how time is, not in our hand, but Allah has given us these two principles by which we govern our time with our iman and our good deeds. And this is what we have to understand. Where do we find time to do these things? And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he tells us, ni'matani maghbunun minan nas, that amongst the two favors that people neglect the most is sihhatu wal farag, good health and free time. These are two things that they neglect the most. They don't pay attention to it, but yet it is which he says that people think that they will have forever. Good health don't last forever. Don't think that the health that we have, we're going to enjoy it all our life. Even if you exercise every day of your life until you reach whatever age, that energy and strength will continuously be dwindling away. It's getting less and less. And the things that you could have done when you were young, you can never ever achieve it again. As many of the people mentioned, like the shababa aidun, if only youth could return. The things that we could have done when we were young, we could never do it when we are old. And we say, when I was your age, I could have done this. When I was this age, no, I cannot do that. So we think about what? How much time has gone and what we could have done then and what we cannot do again. So in this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us that he sells the idea for us: do not lose your good health to waste, and neither do not lose your free time and have not achieved the objective of this life. So therefore, a relationship, husband and wife, think about this carefully. What Allah is saying in the Quran and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us. These are two favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on every human being. Whether you're the husband or the wife, you are a human being and you are the servant of Allah. And these are the favors of Allah that Allah tells us we should be concerned about, and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us we have to be concerned about. And it doesn't matter who we are in that relationship. It governs us as well. Because a husband will die, a wife will also die. And that tells us the next important thing. And that is that in a relationship, the time that is spent with that individual, we must spend it valuable. Because you see, one night, we might go to sleep, and only one person might wake up from that bed. A day, the husband might go out to work and may never return. And some moments in our life, this is how it happens. And therefore, never chance a day and think what is going to happen and we're going to continue life as normal. Every day and every moment in our relationship must be considered as valuable. And valuable time. And therefore there is no time in a relationship for hate and for anger and for arguing and for destruction and hatred in a relationship. There is no time for that when there is so little time to what? Have love in a relationship. There's little time for love, but we have room, enough room for shaitan to destroy our relationship. We leave room in that time for shaitan to take effect in our lives. Where is the room? We don't even have that time. Limited time for love and relationship and good time with each other. But yet what? We have all the time for people to what? Destroy our relationship. It cannot happen. So we have to understand how important it is now to guard that relationship. So amongst these things, men should always appreciate their women, particularly for two reasons. Firstly, because of her deen and her religion. That's the first principle. By the relationship of time, we have to understand that by the deen, Allah has blessed an individual with a spouse, with a wife. That relationship, one must appreciate that that person needs our time. Be it the wife or be it the husband. But more so, a man should understand, having a wife there is not just to occupy your time, or neither for she to be occupying her time with your relationship. In other words, what you want to be fulfilled in life is the only objective. So she slaves her time behind your what? Your objective. And then, so sometimes you see that it goes at the compromise of the deen of Islam. So sometimes she has to give up many things of her own obligations to Allah to fulfill the rights of the husband. This can never be right. If we have to ask ourselves, if it ever will be permissible for a wife to disobey her husband, then what is the conditions? If he tells her, look, you don't have time to pray, now you better start cooking food. That could never happen. Who is more important, Allah's worship or the food? Yes, pleasing the husband might be okay, but displeasing Allah's ibadat and hukuk and right is which comes first? The hukuk of Allah, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the orders of Allah. So then that husband must understand that time is actually what? Necessary for his wife to pray. And he cannot debar her of that time. He cannot say anything about that time because Allah time for ibadat and worship becomes superior over any other command. Over any other command. And that is how to understand one thing. The faraid of Allah, when it becomes obligatory upon a spouse, then that spouse has the right to fulfill that time of ibadat and worship to Allah, and that individual, that spouse of the other, whether it be the wife or the husband, cannot object. Cannot object, but must be pleased that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least my husband or my wife is serving Allah with the obligations, alhamdulillah. And that goes in all respect as well. Suppose the husband is all laid back, come home from work, stretch back out, relaxing all the time. A certain time come in and go in, I tired, I really can't get back on pray now, you know. Wife cannot sit back and say, well, my husband tired today. He can't pray and fulfill his obligation. She must let him know that this time that you have here is not my time or your time. This is Allah's time, and go and pray. So the wife must also show the importance of the value of time when it comes to the hukuk of Allah, the laws of Allah. She should not let her husband just lay back and think that there's time on her hand. It cannot happen so. Because she will be destroying her own future and her husband's future. Just by allowing that time to pass. By allowing that time to pass. And in that relationship, that aspect of it, a Muslim was also, in that case, as a Muslim, just as you fulfill the tenets of Islam, such as salah, fasting, etc., you as well, she should also fulfill the same in the relationship with each other. One another, we have to fulfill our relationship. If this is the right of Islam, Islam tells us that we have to fulfill the hukuk of Allah and Allah's deen with that time must be done. Likewise, what are the hukuk and the rights of the wife and the husband? Those things must also be fulfilled in a timing. Don't hold it back. If it is that there's a certain demand and a haq and a right and the wife deserves these things, then don't say when I have time. You know, that's usually excuse. Right now I'm busy, I don't have time right now. Really and truly, what is important? You don't have time to do the obligations of having a wife or a husband. What is the duty towards them? You don't have time for them? We cannot say we do not have time when each and every individual in that relationship, be it the husband or the wife, have that right upon our time as well. Because this is part of the deen. It tells us that there is a relationship and a right towards that time. And we have to know what is the principle that requires us to give our time. So, if we look back at the life of the Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala and the Anbiyas and the Prophets of Allah, we would see that Prophets of Allah, in their relationship with their spouses, what they did with time. What they did with time. Their whole life was surrounded around the deen of Allah. And their wives were also surrounded around the same effort of the deen of Allah. Yet, the obligations of their home, the upkeeping of the home, all of that time was also shared by them. The upkeeping on the rights of the wife and the looking after the wife and the taking care of the wife was also taken care of. And except when the commands of Allah would come, that Allah says X, Y, and Z will be the case. In the case of Ibrahim and Hajara, he fulfilled his right to his wife until the point of when? When Allah commanded him to take his wife and leave her where? In Mecca, where it was pure desert. What did she say? If it is the command of Allah, then you can do this. And without a doubt, it was the command of Allah, and he left her like that. And she understood it. Was not an abandonment. It was by the order of Allah. Today, many people abandon that position of understanding the right. Sometimes their wife are talking to them. They what? Listen, I'm late. We will talk that later. Drive off and they're gone. What command is that? As though, we take everything that they say. That ain't necessary, no. What I have to do is what? More important, and my time is more important now. So you what? We'll deal with that later. And later would come, and something else what? Would come more important. And say, I don't have time for that right now again. And that time, go on again. And this is what happens. But we are not prophets of Allah, and we are not commanded to behave like this. We have to follow the hukuk of Allah, the laws of Allah when it comes to time. What we have to do when those things happen. Just say, well, deal with it otherwise? No, we have to know that this individual lives with me, this is my wife, and I have a right to listen to what she has to say. It may be very important to her, if not to me, and it means that I must listen. It may not be important to us as men, but to our wives it may be very important. And likewise, for the wife, she may not want to hear everything that he has to say, but it may be important to him and not to her, but she must also have the time to listen to it. That is one part of the right of the time, to at least share that in listening what someone has to say. So, it tells us here that, and nobody knows who are you two is more, who are more accepted in terms of their deen or consciousness in the eyes of Allah Ta'ala. Meaning that, we are not sure what Allah is going to accept, what is the condition of people, what Allah is going to accept from any one of us when it comes to a relationship. And especially with our time. And we thinking that our time, well, we don't really have time to listen to nobody. Don't think like that. We don't know what Allah really has guided in the heart of our husband or our wife that may be beneficial to us to listen. But we ignore that. So, what are the rules and engagement when we look at it? What rules should we think? How should a couple really spend their time in our time? In our modern day time, we don't have what? Laborious amount of time, but yet we spend so much time doing all sorts of things. And if technology and all the advancement was helping relationship today, we'll see so many cases where people separate. What happened to all the technology? All the nice things that we have, all the comforts and the ease. We have nice cars, nice phone, all type of things. Imagine, you and your wife are sharing a conversation, but in your hand, you listening to her, but you're doing what? Texting to somebody, talking to somebody, but you're talking to your wife, but your hand has what? A phone on it. And imagine if your wife does the same, and you're sharing a conversation, but you're what? Not watching each other, you're watching the phone. Valuable time must not be distracted even by our phones. So what it tells us, let us learn a few things. In our time, how to spend time. One of the key things is to ditch the TV on weeknights. Weekends sometimes, but ditch the relationship of the television and your spouse. Because if you maintain a relationship with the television, it's hard to maintain a relationship with your spouse. Strange. You want to know how that is? You have to ditch the TV because you're going to ditch the relationship with your spouse. The average Muslim husband spends more time giving his undivided attention to the TV or his laptop than to his wife. And it can be vice versa too, right? If we ask our time, how much time we spend behind TV rather than on the wife, or on any relationship in the home, or on the phone, or on the laptop, as in relationship, Falas for the deen. We're talking about obedience to Allah is one thing. That's a haqq and a right we have to do. Sometimes salah would come and the show would continue and we continue watching the show and salah also going. But that's not all. We are talking now about the importance of time in a relationship. Who gets more time? Television or the wife or the husband? Who gets more time? Yes, we might say wives continuously want to talk. If you give them a chance, they will talk all the time. And they will still have more talk. And it could be other ways too. But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve that right for time. Yes, they are full of, complaints at times when they return from work and you'd rather, unwind on a couch with something more better and more relaxing. You don't want to hear all the complaints that she might have at work, or all the complaints from the children, or all the complaints from all the different things that are going wrong around the house. You might want to hear all these things. So one of the good things is, what should a wife really do and a husband should really do when they spend time together? How do they spend that time? What manner? How should they carry about themselves when they're spending time together? And that is important. Whether we should listen to what? All the constructive criticism or criticizing each other in our conversation, if that is the only thing we can find time to do. If the only time we'll come together is to either quarrel, complain about something, or to say something about something else, or about somebody's job or something or the other, if that is the only time we could spend time, find time doing, then something is really wrong with the time, because we had no time to what? Say anything good. In all the time that we spend together, something has to be what? Something has to give way. So either some way in that time, we are utilizing our time in the relationship that we have for the wrong things. We are utilizing for the wrong thing. Maybe it would have been better, probably to put a message, but then that message might also be difficult because you might get the wrong message at the wrong time. You might pick it up the next day when it should have been what? Put on the same day. So maybe paper might not work, but at the same time, we have to know how to communicate with each other when it comes to sharing this time. So, however, to keep in mind that this will have as a detrimental effect on our relationship, our marriage relationship, no matter what we do, these are the things that are going to destroy relationship, and it's happening today, even more fast and more furious than before. Because today we are seeing it. Younger people are having more difficulties in their marriage rather than older people. Why? What were missing there and it is now here? Television has become what? Part of our room, our bedroom, our living room, kitchen, anywhere you put a television. And now laptop is anywhere. You have little handsets, phones, anywhere you can watch any program, anything. Because it occupies our time. It takes away from the time of our relationship. We see that there are other things that does that in our relationship today. So, what? In the past, we never had that, but today, it is here. It is here. And we see it. A husband, he don't have to go outside to play television or a game. He plays a lot on the computer. So you might say, no, I don't want to go outside and play a game, a card with nobody. He just goes on the computer and he plays all the cards because he likes cards. Or he likes chess, or he likes some other type of game. And he spends his time just doing that alone. Hours passing and he's just there. So what happens? What happens to the time? What was seemingly supposed to be good end up destroying our time. Marriage, like your career, needs your time. You need time to study to enhance your career. You need to improve. You need to go and do extra class, take an extra course, do something to improve your condition of your work. So you're going to do all of that just to get a better pay. But what we do with our time to enhance our relationship, what we give of our time to improve the relationship between our husband or between our wife, what do we give from our time? And when it comes to spending that time, you think the serious attention and work, what is it we do? It doesn't bloom and flourish on its own. It just doesn't happen like that. We just get married and things just going down the road all well and good. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that. It needs us to focus and put time into that relationship. And let's look at it. If a person, a wife or a husband, sits together and just watch television, who or what gauge their attention together? Well, nothing is wrong with watching television if you want to, but what gauges your attention? The television. What in the television? The wife might see something attractive. A nice person, a nice individual. I want my husband to look like that. The husband sees a nice woman in television. He says, I want my wife to start to look like that. Or they have some special thing. You see how nice that house looking at that? I want to fix the house like that. Or I see this nice driveway, or this nice flowers, or this particular thing. You want this on the movie. Or this on this particular thing that you see on television. So what enhances you from the television? Only what? Dreams. Things that the eyes can see, but the hands can never meet. The hands can never hold. And it occupies our time. It occupies the time of both of them. And then they start to live on this dream, and then they start to argue over this dream, and they try to make their time. But what had happened? Just for 1 hour and a half, it brought to them years of destruction. 1 year of destruction. You know, wives will spend time in a marriage going through so many different types of magazines and all different types of this and that, looking at things. But how many of her time is spent learning something about Deen? Reading something valuable about Islam. A husband will also spend his time going through so much newspaper. Every day a newspaper. Looking at something. You know, you could actually build tables out of newspaper at times. Because of so much newspaper. But how much of that time is spent on doing what? Reading something about Islam. So when they sit together, instead of watching television for some time, could spend some of their time constructively in what? Learning something and exchanging ideas about Deen. How many husbands will teach their wives to read Quran? Spend time doing that. How many wives will spend time teaching their husband to read Quran? This was the lifestyle of the Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala anhum with their wives and their husbands. This was the way that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent time with him, his wives, and the wife would be with him. They would learn and teach each other, share ideas with each other about this Deen. They would ask questions about Deen. If you hear many hadiths, and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, they narrate what? Hadith from Aisha, who hears what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, so and so and so. They were like an institution of knowledge in the environment of Deen. This was their lifestyle. This is what we see in the relationship that they shared. It's not that the only thing that they did was this, but this is how they occupy their time. Their free time. What do we occupy our free time that should be spent in the path of Allah, or learning Deen, or being in the environment of Deen? Where does it go? Who takes it away? What takes it away? How much money we get back from the television? How much blessings we get back from the television? Or the handheld phones, or the laptops, or the computers that we have? How much blessings we get back from it? Think about that relationship. How valuable this time is when we would sit and lose all of this time. And lose all of this time. So, ditching the television entirely, has had many positive direction and effect in many households, not just in Muslim lives, in many non-Muslim lives as well. They understand how dangerous television was to their family relationship, and they also what? Put it in a room and locked it away. Put it in a cupboard and locked it away. Keep it away. And not having 3 and 4 televisions and having different locations. I can have so much this and how much screens and how much big screen and small screen. Not that we are ditching and bad talking television. What we are talking about is that how much of our time in that relationship goes behind something that destroys our relationship and time with Allah, and what is important in building a marital relationship and a spiritual relationship. Because as Muslims, in particular, as Muslims, we see that our youths, our young married couples, do not focus their life on Deen. But we give them everything else and divert their attention from what their marriage life should really be. If it is focused and centered around this, and they really understand how to share this time properly, share this time, utilizing it for the pleasure of Allah, utilizing it, then barakat will come in their time. Blessings will come with their time. They will have time to do more things. More time to be happy. More time to be productive in life and more time in achieving more for the hereafter, making bigger sacrifices. But this is something that affects our relationship as well. Because sometimes when husband and wife are not on the same page with time, there are complaints. There are complaints. Because you'd hear, the husband, he goes to the masjid. And he goes there from the evening until the night, and I don't see this man ever again. Every day is the same thing. So the wife what? Complains because he goes to the masjid from what? Evening till night, and you don't see him again. You don't have time for me? You only have time for the what? Masjid. Strange, isn't that so? He is in the path of Allah, but he what? Doesn't have time. Now the husband should also be conscious whether or not that he needs to spend all this time there, or his wife understands how important it is, what he's doing there, or what he's involved in the masjid at that time. Is not just only going there to old talk, but he's doing something constructive at times. He may be involved in Quran, learning some lesson, or doing something in the masjid that is valuable at this time. He just don't come to the masjid and waste time too. In other words, don't come to the masjid, sit down to the masjid, and deliberately waste time and do something else other than what? You sit down and just watch all over the place, and you're just in the masjid in the evening, you're relaxing. No, if we are here, make use of that time. Make use of that time. Because that time is also valuable. That time is also valuable. Engage in some discussion, it should be dini discussion. Sometimes valuable. Not that we can share some other ideas or some relax some other talks too, but dini discussion is also important. Like that elevates our knowledge, it makes us brighter in our deen, and makes us better in our deen. It should improve our akhlaq and our time. So the time spent in the masjid should not only be when I go home now, well, I'm tired and sleepy. We should share some time with our spouse in the relationship of what we have learned. Don't say, I learn now, she don't know, put her aside. Put her aside and leave it like that. We have to teach them, let them know if we understand something, and do it in the best manner possible. So with that time, we also share our knowledge with them. So they know that he went to the masjid and he just didn't come back here and do anything. He did something valuable with the time. He learned something. He teach me something. And that shows that if there is this interest that you would utilize your time and share that with your wife, then they will know that you didn't come to the masjid and just waste time. You did something valuable and you utilize that time. And it works that way. It benefits you, her, and the entire family together. So that time becomes much more better. And again, if you can't remove the TV from your home, at least move it out of your bedroom. Because that is one place that is very important. If it's one thing that we must always recognize, is that time. The relationship that one has when they go to bed is also important. And that means the time. Because you can't have the wife, you go to bed early, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, whatever time after Isha. And then you say the wife, well, she doing all the housework. And after she's done, she go on the internet, spend the next, 5, 6 hours on the internet. And when you come on the bed, you what? As you say, what? Knock out, sleeping, as you say, cutting log. As you say, sleeping away. You have no idea what's going on. Right? So she out there for hours and hours. And it could be the other way around too. Right? Wife tired from all the day work. But you come back and you still have time to spend all that time on the computer. Whole time when you go back inside, she's sleeping, and you want to go and disturb the woman. No. Can't work so. Because there must be a lock of time that both parties agree that, look, let's call it the night. Finish there, let's go and relax. Let's go to bed, that's it, finish. But there must be some type of level of agreement and arrangement even with that time. Because that is an important time in our life. If we cannot agree on even that, going to sleep, what about other things with time? What about other things with time? What about getting up to pray tahajjud in the night and you just wake up? Let she sleep now, man. She had to get up in the morning to cook. Let she take some rest. Because she can't get up in the morning. So you pray tahajjud and she what? Sleeping. Like tahajjud is only for what? For men alone. Not for the sisters, they don't have to pray tahajjud. You know, it's important to what? Also give them that importance of time to also get up and pray. You know, encourage them. Because they need this type of level of spirituality that we also raise their status in the eyes of Allah. And you don't have to spend whole time. You spend a couple, if it's half an hour, 20 minutes, make it short, make it simple. You know you have a long day ahead. You get the tahajjud inside, you take some rest again. Do some extra zikr, but you spend that time making sure that you're not just involved in the level of spirituality in your time, but you also involve your wife in that relationship. In that relationship. So that you know your time for even sleeping and waking up is also valuable. You get up for Fajr, time for Fajr comes, you also wake up for Fajr. Don't just go and say, come back to the mosque and leave that time just like that and she's sleeping still, or she probably don't pray Fajr and you think she don't pray already and you sleep away. Go back and do what you have to do. We don't operate like that with our time. Even in that, because we share this relationship in such a manner. So, even in that time to go to sleep, there must be a level of agreement. If you say, well, I accustomed waking late and he like to sleep early. So let you go to sleep early and I go wake what? Late as I feel because I can't sleep right now. You know, we hear this, I can't sleep right now, but he want to sleep. So let you go and sleep. It can't work like that. We have to understand how we could actually what? Get that time we could share and have a consciousness and awareness that, yes, maybe we may not be able to sleep right now, but just get involved in the reading of the Quran and see what happens. Just start to make some zikr and see what happens. You start making zikr and start to read Quran, sleep away like that. Because the sakina and tranquility just puts you to sleep. Not that it's boring, but what happens is because this is what occupies our times as well. So we have that as part of our relationship. So you would see the positive impact of this in your marital relationship, inshallah, if you would just put that TV aside and put some time in our relationship. And that is one of the things, instead of spending time learning all other things, learn how to talk positive conversation. If we ask ourselves, how many of us would speak to our wife about Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, about Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha? Have we ever shared a relationship about any conversation with our wife about any of the Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala anhum? Have we shared a conversation with our wife in our time that we had about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any other prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Have we shared with our wives or husband any ayats of the Quran about some relationship or something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran? Have we discussed any of these things together? With our time. The time that Allah has given us to be together. What is this to be together about what? Coming together for what? You see, duty is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the relationship of the time that Allah has given us together comes on the grounds that we know that this time is, we are going to account to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the way we spend our time with our spouse. We are not going to escape it. We are not going to escape this. We will not get away with the fact that I have lived a righteous life and my wife did not get the opportunity to. My time was utilized properly. She didn't utilize her time. And we ask ourselves, why? Where were you? As the husband in that relationship, where were you in that relationship? And that is, very important for all of us. Be it whoever we are, whatever our responsibilities are to the society, to the community, whether we are leaders as people in our community, as Muslim leaders, we cannot give up our time for the sake of people and not uphold the rights of our family as well. There must be a cutoff point that they also deserve time. And likewise, that relationship with every one of us, to the masjid, to our jobs, to whatever we do, whether it's a sports club we are in, whatever it may be in, whether we go in sports whole Sunday, Saturday playing cricket, Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever you're doing, how much time you are giving, know how to spend that time. Because if you are taking Sunday for sports or Saturday for sports for yourself, let the wife have some time other than what? Housework, other than chores, to do something that she doesn't have to be involved in those things. So she would have free time like yourself. So she would understand and you would understand that we are taking some time for leisure on our own. And nothing is wrong with that. We should have personal time. We should have what? Personal time as well. We also need time from each other apart. We don't do what? Like I said, nagging and hooking on to each other all the time. Yes, we need personal time too. While we need to be together, we also need to have a little bit of free time for ourselves. So we could just think about ourselves. How we could be better as a human being, as an individual, as a husband or as a wife. How I could be better with that time that I have. And that tells us that the value of that time for spending personal time is important. Spending time for worship, spending time in the relationship, and also spending time in our job, spending time behind religion, and the knowledge of deen is also important. These are times that we have to divide. And in a relationship, all these are factors. Not only the husband's job takes precedent. Sometimes you see even a relationship, a man is a businessman, all he has time is for his business. He never has time for his children, nor for his what? For himself. And you know what happens at times? These same people, they become sick and they don't have time for the business anymore. They can't take care of the business, they can't take care of themselves. Now someone has to sacrifice their time to take care of them. That eventually happens as well, because we did not manage our time. And the time when it goes by and we have not utilized it for the pleasure of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives in that time certain types of tests and trials, and we lose out, then you say, I no longer have health. When I had that, I take all that time and did that with it. Now that business, all the money that it has, all that you have occupied in wealth, how much of it is going to benefit you for the life of the hereafter from that time? And you are in a relationship with your wife. Now when she needed your help the most, you were never there. Never there. That time which was due for her, you were never there. And likewise, if the husband needed that time with you and you're never there, what's going to happen? You think you're going to ever give back that time to that individual that you're going to share? When it was there for us to share with each other? So it may never happen again. So, if we look at it, why do we spend time working? Why do we work in the first place? Why do we spend time working? It's to make our family what? Better, isn't that so? We take that money so that we make that better home, have better rides, better comforts. That's why you're working. And sometimes we forget what we are trying to do is to make comforts or to make happiness with time. Sometimes all the time go on behind what? Trying to build the comfort, but no time was spent in building the relationship. All the time was spent in buying things, but money cannot buy happiness. And the money cannot buy love, and the money cannot buy time. No matter what we do, we must know that the time that Allah has given to us is such a time that is valuable more than everything else. And therefore, put it and give it its due when it is due. Don't put it off for our next day. Because what your wife might tell you at this time, and she was meaning to tell you at this time, you leave and go. You might die, and you would have never heard her last words. You may not. Or she may have died, and when you return, you would have never been able to hear what those words would have been. Imagine that. You put off this important note or word from your wife or your husband for some other time, and they pass out, what's going to happen? You'll never have that. You'll regret it all of your life that I never spent that one moment to hear what they had to say. To hear what they had to say. Because you think how valuable your time is. And lose that time with your relationship with your family, it will never come back again. Never ever return. And you could put everything on that card that you want, but the day that they needed you the most to spend time with them and you never spend that time, you could do whatever you want. That day that they needed your help would never return. And you could never compensate for it. Never compensate for it. You could say what you like, it will never compensate. You could do what you like, you could give what you like, because who is going to reward that time? Who is going to reward that time? When you needed it, they helped the most. And their dua, Jazakallah, may Allah reward you. Thank you so much for helping me. When that is missed, when the opportunity is missed, that time is missed, it can never come back. It can never come back. Where are you going to get it come back from? Who is going to bring it back? That is gone. That is gone. So, when we look at it, we should make that time very important in the way we spend with our relationship. So, in that time, we should also look at the way we what? Never have your meals with your family. Also what? Sit down watching TV and you're eating together. So everybody sit down, take their food out, sit down what? Couch area, eating and what? TV watching. Everybody watching the TV? Meals are eaten, and the tasbih of Allah, something happened, some climax in the show, and food in your mouth still. You know, it stick right there, like you can't chew it. You know, you have to tell some of your children chewing food and what, they stick like that, they can't chew again because what? The show reach a point they can't even chew self. They're so concentrated on what? The show, they forget to chew the food. TV takes away what? Takes away even the time when we are eating dinner or eating lunch, whatever it is. We sit together. This is the sunnah, the way and the life of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They never had TV, but they had their meals together. They had their meals together, not distracted by what they are doing in their meals. Eating for the pleasure of Allah. Sharing some spiritual conversation together may also be beneficial. Sharing some time of what happened. This is the place you can actually share some time. This is the place sometimes you forget to even say what? Bismillahi wa ala barakatillah. We start to eat, drink, eat, drink, and some people overeat. They eat, and they want to spend more time watching the show, so what they do? Take out some more food. So they can what? Eat and finish what the show. So they eat out 3 plates of food when they finish watch one show. When they can eat what? Just 1 plate without work. But these things what? Happen, and we don't realize it. And the relationship of the family also what? Erodes, because barakat is also lost when we do not sit in this congregation and eat in our family, between a husband and a wife. Spending time in sharing a meal is also important. Not just taking out the meal for the husband and you go back washing the dishes or preparing this. So the children eating, husband eating, wife still what? Cleaning kitchen, fixing this, fixing that, packing clothes, doing some other thing, not eating food with the family. She should what? Abandon all those things. When a family is having a meal, it is with every individual in that family sits together and have that meal. All the other jobs could wait. The clothes could wait. The dishes could wait. The food that is cooked should be eaten, and we should not. It's also part of the sunnah of the Rasul that the food should not be what? Sitting there after we have done, prepared it, and just what? Doing and ignoring what food is there. It's a barakah from Allah to have food. Why what? Lose the blessings of having the food available for us. Let's eat it and eat it together. That's where we're going to get more reward for it. Do not be distracted by all the other chores. And you know the phone, you get a phone call. Excuse me, I have to go now. I have to talk. And instead of talk, everybody else done eat. And you what? Still talking on the phone. Still talking on the phone. There should be a cutoff point, or we should be kind of having a meal with family right now. You know, just call back in a couple minutes. It take too long again, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Show your family that courtesy. At least show some respect for your family. If nobody else, respect your wife, respect your children. Leave the phone alone. Eat with your family so that they would know that you honor them and you share that time with them with respect. Not only respecting the orders of Allah, respecting your family as well. Share that time with them. It may be, yes, yeah, you can answer it, but just what? Out of courtesy, tell them, look, I'm this. They will appreciate it. They will know that you put aside everything else. And if you can put aside the TV, put aside the phone. Put aside everything else. We can understand here, you know, how important it is that this dinner and this eating together is. Just even the phone, just put it aside. Put aside the TV, put aside everything else. Just share an important meal together. Show love, share your food. You know, all these things. This is time. The time it takes to even eat a meal is important. That is time, but valuable time, a rewarding time. That shows that when you sit with your family, they see respect and honor. When a father would eat, or a husband would eat, a wife would eat with their children, and they see them, teach them table manners, you teach them respect, what to eat. You can even bring diets into their life. You can show them so much healthy ways of eating and so much things. But just sharing that meal brings all of that. Brings all of that. They will appreciate it more. You can design your room where you want to eat in whatever style you like, but make sure and sit together. You can put the biggest and longest dinner table, but you're not there, it doesn't make the dinner table complete. You can put a golden plate, whatever plate you like to eat in, but you're not there to eat, it doesn't complete the dinner. Whatever you prepare, be there. You can have the simplest of homes, whatever it is. If you have to sit on the ground, wherever you want, but sit and share that meal all together. All right? So, we should look at it and should look at this in respect of being occupied with our family even in that. And just remember, At the end of it, at the same time, a spouse, be the husband or the wife, should not sacrifice family time, bedtime, and very important household chores, being occupied with hundreds of friends on Facebook and other chat sites or phones, messaging and friends and so on. Some people, some wives ask, how much friends you have? 500, 600, 700 people on Facebook. Subhanallah. Except the husband, no time for husband, no time for wife. But everybody else, hundreds of people. And one individual who is more important than that, you have no time for. Ajib, how strange, how strange we could be as human beings with all the technology. We can't recognize who is more valuable in our life. We think that phone is more valuable. We think that Facebook is more valuable. We think that all these things are more valuable. Occupying our time is so much of things that even doesn't occupy our own time. It's like dreams. We are living on these things rather than the real life. Real love, sharing real time with love with people is more important. More important. And that is valuable time for Muslims that we must never forget. Never forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who has given this time. And if we have never utilized our time before in our relationship, it is too late, but we don't know how much time we have left to share that relationship with that spouse, with our wife or with our husband. We could never tell what could take place any day. You could be young and fresh in the marriage, and your life could end short. And we think we have a long time, yeah, you could get old, something happen, but no. We could be young in the marriage, fresh in the marriage, years, a couple of years. One person pass away, some person get very sick, something happened, he can't even talk again. You didn't want to talk to your wife in the first place, now Allah cause he can't even talk, so he can't even talk again. All these things could happen. So many things could happen. So when we are given a mouth to speak, speak good to them. Spend that time speaking good. When we are given the ability with the time we have, listen, make time for our family. Share time with our wife. Share time with our husband. Do not let anything take precedent over that. Not our jobs, nor the television, nor the phone, nor anyone even we think who are more important to us. They are no more important than this. Even the relationship we should have with our parents is very important. They are right, and they have a right of our time as well. But we must know how to also share that time. Never let these time go by and we have not utilized it for the pleasure of Allah. So tonight, inshallah, we have learned how important it is to share a relationship with our spouse in relationship to time. And we understand the principles of it, inshallah. We'll stop there. Next week, inshallah, we'll talk a little about beauty and how to dress up a little bit in the relationship, inshallah. Let's make dua, inshallah, before we close. Allahumma ameen. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.